Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time.
In this week's episode of the Kindness Project, we talk about reviews, charity, and we have part one of our interview with Jane Finnerty from Solla.
Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of the Kindness Project. I'm joined by a man who popped off quickly to get his coffee, and a man who sat and indulged me in my conversation about dice while he did. You got nothing to say, Dad?
Well, you look
Hey, I thought I was surplus to requirements now on the podcast because I came back from getting my coffee and a quick trip to the loo. And you guys said, "Oh, we've recorded it now."
We were joshing.
3 o'clock is recording time, and we're 8 minutes late.
Okay, so calling you two, if you think you've got this on right,
for some reason, we're always available on time, and you're always running late.
Because I've got stuff to do, Russ.
Make coffee and pop into the loo. It's not the stuff to do.
Pop into the loo is stuff to do, isn't it?
You could have waited.
That's exactly what pop into the loo is.
That could have made for a good podcast with you grinching. Trying not to wet yourself.
Well, exactly. You don't want a man who's desperate for a wee recording a podcast. Definitely not. And as Charlotte knows, when I'm desperate for a wee, I'm not good company, am I, Charlotte?
No. And he will just leave you to go to the loo. He'll just ditch you somewhere.
What do you mean?
Well, you can't not do that, to be honest.
Huh?
You can't not do that, can you?
Oh, you've got to. When you've got to go, you've got to go.
Yeah, when you got to go.
Russ, he left me a good 5 minutes up the road and ran.
We were walking in Glasgow and I was like, I gotta go!
I'm going to do it around the back of some of these houses. It's fine. I'm going to do it back here. And I'm like, no, Dad, no, you can't. He's like, I'm going to run to the nearest hotel. And he's sprinted off, left me on a bridge on my own.
That sounds desperate, leaving you on a bridge on your own.
Oh, yeah.
He left me on a bridge.
You elbowed her in the face when she was little. Now you're leaving her.
Sorry, I missed that. What did I do?
First you elbowed her in the face when she was little. Now you're leaving her on bridges.
Look, accidents happen, don't they?
See, Dad, unfortunately, you raised me with the specialty of telling tales.
I know. You can't keep anything to yourself, you two, can you?
No, not
you
really.
Keep anything. Say that, can I share a little story from this morning that I had?
Yeah.
I went to so I'm in the office now, clearly, as you guys can see, better podcast listeners can't, which is unusual on a Friday, but needs must and all that. We were incredibly busy, which is all good. But this morning I did my class, bit jumping around, few tuck jumps, few star jumps, lot of dancing and just a general high intensity workout, which was good fun. And my mate Lewis goes to the class, and I met Lewis from the gym, and we got talking one day, and I told him about the podcast, and he said to me this morning, actually, I've started, I'm really sort of into your podcast now. I'm really enjoying them. I was like, great. What ones have you listened to? He said, well, I started at number 1 and I'm on episode 30 now. I was like, okay, great. So you've started from the start. He went, yeah, I love it. I used to suffer a little bit from insomnia, but I go to bed, put one of your podcasts on, and suddenly I'm immediately asleep. I went, give me a flavour. Don't put that as a Google review.
Talking of reviews, we've had a review on the book. I've just shared it in the Kindness Project group.
Let me read that. You know what? We don't. You know what we don't do, and we've never done, is ask for reviews enough. So let me.
I mean, you say never done. When we started, we asked for reviews.
That was on the podcast, not on the book.
Oh yeah.
So what I think I need to do is email everybody. Right, remind me to do this next week. Email everybody who's listened to it, and just like everybody who attended the book launch or anything like that, And if they enjoy, because I get loads and loads of emails and text messages and stuff like that saying how good the book is, but I just never ever ask people to.
Did ask for reviews of the book launch.
Huh?
You did ask for reviews of the book launch.
I'll
presentation.
I think we'll send up a follow-up email on that, Russ, to get people to do it. But
you know what might incentivize people to review on the podcast?
Yeah. So if you're listening to the podcast, can I ask you, where would people leave a review for the podcast, Russ?
Apple iTunes, Spotify, or Amazon Music.
Is there any way we can look at those reviews?
So you can leave reviews in any of those places. I know we've got an amazingly good audience, but we would love some reviews and some positive feedback that what we're doing you're enjoying, or some constructive feedback that allows us to improve. Any feedback is good. Thank you so much for my mate Lewis, who said the podcast sends him asleep. And
that's not always necessarily a bad thing.
I listen to podcasts while I go to sleep. Do you?
Sorry, go on.
I used to, but I don't like factual podcasts. And so sometimes I would just wake up to really scary sounds. Like one time.
Raz has phoned you up? Or...
No.
Raven.
One time I was listening to a podcast.
Stop making weird phone calls.
I'd rather tell both of you to stop using me as a medium to make fun of each other.
Can you tell Charlotte?
One time they got a restraining order for that, and now I have to live it down.
Can you leave feedback on? Yes.
Charlotte, can you tell Russ not to mention the restraining order again? We're meant to be a podcast on kindness.
Russ, do what you like, mate. You're a free agent in this world.
Charlotte. Okay, then. I want to just take a minute, though, to remember Paul O'Grady and how kind he was to animals.
Good shout, actually, Russ. So Paul O'Grady, if you're one of our international listeners, you might not know who Paul O'Grady is. How would you explain him, Russ?
Formerly Lily Savage. Done loads of work for Battersea Dogs Home and raising awareness on having rescue dogs rather than buying them off puppy farms or.
Yeah. So he did loads of charity work for dogs.
Yeah, loads.
Was a real advocate for looking after animals. Owned a farm somewhere.
He owned a farm and he'd had 7 dogs from Battersea himself. And then he'd done the show, didn't he, for the Love of Dogs?
The Love of Dogs, yeah, which was very sweet. I love, even though I'm probably out of all three of us, I'm the person who's got the. No, I actually do love dogs. I love my dog.
I'm not a dog.
He's my dog. I don't know what you're talking about.
Teddy wanted a dog, but I would have stuck to cats myself.
But yeah, so Lily Savage, Paul O'Grady, decent human being all round, passed away way too young, 67. Yeah, so he should have been around for a lot longer. Back to this review on the.
I can't find any.
Vitaligus said, loved this book. Good start, isn't it? It's very well written, easy to read. It's definitely one of those books that makes you a better person. How about that for a review? Not bad, is it?
It's a good review. I see it this morning and I thought to myself, I'll take a screenshot of that and I'll share it. And then I forgot to share it.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing it, Russ. And certainly it's one that I'm glad you highlighted. Now, we are under a bit of a short time frame today because you've got to get a bus.
I got to go.
When you got to go, what have you got to do?
But the thing is, if I don't get this bus, I lose my money, and that's more of a problem than you having a bit of a bad tummy.
Well, talking about that, I've got to go in for my big ear op next week.
Yeah.
Went into the consultant yesterday, and he's told me what they're going to do. Basically, give me a robot ear or something like that. They're just going to chop it off and give me a new one.
Okay, Terminator, continue.
I'll be like the ear version of T2000. What?
Go to Robotnik.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping for a gadget. I want a gadget ear. I want to be do.
Inspector Gadget.
Thank you, Russ. What happened there?
I'm cultured.
Have a little aerial that pops out, and you can listen to the radio.
Go gadget, go!
That came up on Quizlet the other day. Inspector Gadget.
You did. That's good.
Yeah.
So I've got to go in for me major ear op, and I'll probably look like this is the reason we're recording quite a lot of podcasts in a row at the moment, because we need to make sure that if my recovery, if they chop my head off by accident, we
can only
better get some in the bag.
I knew major ear op when he was a colonel.
Sorry?
Nothing.
Imagine they get the ears bundled up.
They did. I went to see the nurse, right? I went to see the nurse, but like all the tests went in, like they've got to do a blood test and infection test and all that stuff. And I said to her, okay, so what do you need to check? She went, right, we are operating on your left ear, aren't we? I went, no. Left ear is my good ear. Left ear is the one that works. She went, I've got bilateral meaning on here, meaning both ears. I went, no. As I said, don't operate on both ears. She went, I better check with the consultant. But I saw the consultant yesterday, and he's definitely operating on the right ear, which is
on the right ear.
On the right ear, which is the right ear. So, but what he said to me, I went in to see the consultant, who hopefully is the one that knows what he's doing as he's doing the operation. And he, I'm meant to be going to Jersey to see our cousin Louise for us.
Yeah, you did mention it the other day.
Ain't happening because I can't fly.
Can't you take a boat?
I could, but I might have a look. But tickets are booked. I've said to Cassie and Sophie that they should go and just leave me on my own.
Well, I would have done the same thing personally. Just left you to it.
On the bridge, on my own. Well, you ran off there to wee, Russ.
That's right.
Perfect. Let's move on to kindness now.
That's what sibling bonds are. That's what it is.
Let's move on to
kindness news.
Go on in, Charlotte.
Yes. Tabs. Oi.
Tabs. What is tabs?
So so Russell sent me the notes for this week's podcast on my work email, but I always have three. At the moment, I've always got 3 different accounts open, and one's my personal, one's my work, and one's yours.
Right,
one's
I
your
will
work.
start with the second article because this is. Sorry, can you do the jingle again?
Kindness news.
Indian Uber edition.
Okay.
Indian Uber edition. Do you want to do the accent, Russ?
No.
Oh, no.
No.
Go on,
I will be
Russ, do the
shutting it
accent.
down now.
Charlotte, can you ask Russell to just very quickly do the accent for me, please?
No.
Russell, please don't do the accent. We might get cancelled.
I'm not going to do the accent.
Now, Russell's uncancelable. He's just got one of those faces. He's an uncancelable.
People don't know what Russell looks like because there's no pictures of him on the podcast.
Oh, there's not.
No, there's not. Let me tell you this story. Uber unselfish kindness. Uber driver donates a kidney to a man he met during a ride. The Uber driver turned out to be a successful donor match and donated the man a kidney. Can you imagine in today's time being so kind as to donate a kidney to a stranger whom you've just met? In a heartwarming story, this will restore your faith in humanity. A 73-year-old man was given a second chance at life, and his unlikely saviour turned out to be an Uber driver in the USA in New Jersey. So this isn't India. It's from an Indian publication, but the story is from New Jersey. Bill Sumiel was driving an Uber on his way to a dialysis centre, and his driver was Tim Letts, the former US Army veteran. They struck up a conversation about health problems that Sumiel was having. Sumiel suffered from kidney failure after developing diabetes 20 to 30 years earlier. According to a local press source, his physicians advised him to actively hunt for a kidney rather than wait as he needed a transplant. He'd already been on the transplant list for 3.5 years. By the end of the car ride, Letts told him that God put him in the car that day and the Uber driver offered him a kidney. Astonishingly, they ended up being a match, and Sumiel underwent successful surgery. The Post says that it's been a year, and Sumiel is currently rehabilitating in the University of Delaware's renal rehab centre. Letts lives in Germany now, but Sumiel says he stays in touch with his forever friend who saved his life. I love that story. I love that story. I am a big advocate of donors. I'm a big advocate. I was a bit gutted this week because I went for my normal trip to be a bit cheeky to nurses and eat a lot of biscuits. And give a bit of blood. And they said no, they didn't want my blood.
Because you have a surgery next week.
I know, because I might need it, they said. And you know what was funny, Charlotte? I said, well, I thought blood was replaced in your body quite quickly. And they said, well, it is, but some of it isn't. I was like, okay. So why don't you just take the blood that you...
We've had this conversation because they would need a centrifuge and then they would have to pump it back into the body.
Exactly. Just take it out, take what you need, and pump the bit that I need back in.
Centrifuge isn't small-scale equipment. Okay.
I know. They said it's actually quite expensive and long winding process. So they decided not to. Would you like to share the next?
Yes, I've got it.
Funniest news.
Lisbon mum with autistic son encourages public kindness and patience. The mum of a young man with an autism diagnosis says greater work has to go into making services more accessible for people with living. There's a typo. For people living with autism and their families. Anne Hayward's son Ben is 23 and she volunteers with Autism NI to support the other parents of young people living with autism. She spoke to Belfast Live as part of Autism NI's Be Kind to Different Minds campaign this World Autism Week, with about 35,000 autistic people living in Northern Ireland. Ben was diagnosed at 2 years and 6 months with autism. He was very severe, he had very low IQ, as well as attending a special school. He now actually is in tech in Lisbon, doing their foundational learning course, and he's come on very well, and it's probably because of the early intervention he received. Anne said she had found great solace in interacting with other parents who have been through similar experiences. I actually went to the Autism NI support group when Ben was diagnosed because that many years ago, there was hardly anything for parents. I joined the support group and the parents have been brilliant. We met once a month and they have speakers and you just meet for tea or coffee and get to chat with parents who have been through the same experiences. Growing up, it was difficult to find the right spaces and places to take Ben, and Anne says that is something that has changed for the better. However, she said that more could be done to help parents and those living with autism, as she said part of the reason Ben was able to develop so well was because he had an early diagnosis and intervention.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing that, Charlotte. And we're going to move on to part one of our interview with Jane Finnerty from Solla. Solla does loads of great work making sure that the advice that older people receive about their money is top notch and gives guidance and help to find the right advice. And let's listen to the first part of the interview.
Okay, no worries.
Hi there.
Hi, Jane. How are you?
All right, you're just going to use a photo of you. just
Now, you know why I'm.
disconcerting because I suddenly thought he's not moving. That's fine.
I am here.
I know you are.
But my laptop camera's playing up, so my video's going from my phone.
I understand.
But the audio's been recorded from the laptop.
Done that. Been that.
And it's on its last legs, is that laptop, but I'm sort of reticent as long as I can do everything I need to on it.
Yeah.
To replace it immediately, but I'll have to at some point. Right, let me get your questions up. How are you getting on? How's 2023 started for you?
I've got Zoom and everything fatigue. I just, lots of people have been ill and I've not. So I've been covering on all sorts of things, which freaks me out slightly because you can just about manage your own, can't you? And then you think, what? Yeah.
And then when everybody else gives you work, it's all a bit much, isn't it?
Yeah, can you just go to this conference? No, maybe in the afternoon. God, yes, I've been doing a bit of travelling, but I'm fine. You know, compared to people in the world, I'm fine.
Yeah, no, yeah, relatively, it's as you say, relatively, it's always worth sort of looking at where you are in the, in terms of what to be grateful for. So yeah, it's certainly worth doing that. Yeah. Right, let's start our interview because I know you've only got half an hour.
Yeah, well, I've told them I'm not going on till 11:40, so I said, look, okay. Sorry, yeah, so we can, we might get through it. So I should think so.
All right. Well, let's start so that we can get as much good stuff in there as possible. Right. So you recording already?
Yeah, we're good to go, mate.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate that. Jane, welcome to the Kindness Project. Thanks for coming on as a guest.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you mentioned just before our interview started that you're doing a decent amount of travelling at the minute. Yeah. Where have you been?
Oh, I've been up to Glasgow, round to Yorkshire, across Lancashire. It's just the old coming back. So it's been nice.
And how do you get about? Do you fly or do you get the train?
No. Mostly train and sometimes drive. I'm fully electric, but it does have a problem north of Sheffield.
Well, it's interesting because I'm fully electric too. And I'm off to Bristol for the weekend, just for a spa break with my wife.
Right.
And getting over there is from where we are is absolutely fine. Yeah. But we need to charge when we're there. And it's finding the charging point, and I love being fully electric, and for 99.9% of the journeys we do, it's amazing. But the long ones can be a bit of a pain, can't they?
Yeah, and most hotels are being quite good now. They've got charging points, so you'd be surprised. You might be lucky at the other end.
I think we're okay actually. So as I say, thank you for coming on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about you.
Right. Well, I've been sort of working alongside older people for a very, very long time. It's almost 40 years since I graduated, so I am now one of the older people that I've worked alongside. So I was thinking about that and shock horror. You age, don't you? And then suddenly you are one of those older clients. So I think really and truly, I've always found money and the way people view money and use money quite interesting. How people can really mess up as they get older by not making sensible choices throughout the sort of the middle of their life.
Yeah.
And and it gets harder the older you get to put those things right. And I've also, I'm quite fascinated with people's perception of risk of what might happen, rather than concentrating on what really does happen, which is you do get older and you do eventually retire. And I think it's quite interesting that as we've all, we're all working for longer. Well, a lot of us are. I think people are not always that accepting of what they need to do as they get older, with regards to sort of planning for their future. Because
Having an open and honest conversation about the
and
risks they need to take. Yeah,
at 60, you might still have 35 years to go. It's a long time. So,
yeah.
that's quite important.
I've had two things happen in my life, and as you know, I work with a decent number of clients who are sort of in their late 50s all the way through to sort of mid-80s. Typically, are our clients. And one of the interesting things, I've had two experiences. But actually a few more, but two I'll tell you about. Number one is a client who's 58 and probably, he'd say himself, hadn't done any more enough planning to make sure he achieved financial independence, and he's panicking a bit, bless him. So he's in a. But you know what we've found is there's a really big, underground market that we don't see as professionals, but some of our older clients see, of scamming older people. And the susceptibility of people who have got fear about their financial futures get scammed is huge, isn't it?
Yes.
And then I suppose the other one, and I want to talk about scams and hopefully share some advice between you and I to help people avoid those scams. But also, number two is I'm writing a book at the minute. I'm writing my third book. So I recently published the Kindness Project book, which is about the podcast and the amazing people we've interviewed. The next one I'm writing is called What Happens Next, and it's about helping people transition from where they are to where they get to. Money being a part of that, but also clearly the other factors that you need to consider, like health and keeping intellectually engaged and all of that sort of stuff. And I'm interviewing all my clients to see what insight they've got on the particular subject. And most of them have said to me two things. Number one, inside, I don't feel like I'm 60. I still feel like I'm 30. But also, it sort of crept up on me.
I can identify with that.
How's your experience with that? Like, personally, but also with the clients that you get to talk to?
Yeah, it does creep up. I'm quite realistic, and I do sort of, I'm very boring in some ways. I do segment my life and think, oh, I'm in that phase now, that phase. That could be my training. That could be because I've been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah.
But most people, especially if you're very fit and you're still doing the triathlon at 62, most people just cannot accept that they are the age that they are until the hip goes or the knee, and then they think, blimey. And so it's just sort of deciding where you are. So I've got a couple of friends at the moment. They've not retired. One's, their business hasn't succeeded. The other one's just decided after COVID not to work anymore. And but they're very reticent about looking at using their pension now. And I said, what on earth was it for then? Well, I need that for my old age. And you say, And you don't really like to start chucking stats at people about, especially post-COVID, about average life expectancy. But at 62, 65, are we looking at 20 to 25 years realistically? And it's not a nice thought, but actually once you've got everything in order and you've done your best to plan, you kind of forget about it. It's quite a nice feeling. Once
it's interesting, isn't it? I think if you've been in a mindset of accumulating wealth over a decent amount of time, and it sounds like a first world problem, and it is. Spending it is sometimes difficult as well, right?
Yeah,
Because
it
you're like, well,
really
actually,
is.
I've worked hard for that, and I want to make it last. Now, you mentioned about the work you do with older people, and you're doing that for a long time. Tell us a little bit about Solla, the organisation that you run, and the work you do.
Okay, so I do quite a lot on the voluntary side of things. So I've been in the Women's Institute for nearly 38 years, which is a long time. I was the youngest then, and I'm still one of the youngest. So it is an organisation for older people. So again, I go out to do talks. I've been doing fundraising talks, and I think that really influenced when I became a financial advisor in my 20s. I think that really influenced me, and I realized that you got to a certain stage in your life planning and there was nothing else. You retired and that was it. This is going back a long time, sort of 30 odd years, and but now that's different with
Is
life expectancy being that much longer. You've still got a lot of planning to do at 60, 65. You might actually outlive your money, and people do, and I don't want to get depressing, but you might outlive your money. That doesn't mean to say you shouldn't be using your pension wealth and that kind of thing, but perhaps thinking about the future, anticipating things that might happen. It might be that you do need to, move house. Your house is too big, a family home. That's something to start thinking about in your 60s and 70s when you can still do it. But again, I do talk to lots of mostly women that are still sitting there at 85 and said, I kept this 5-bed house because I thought, my husband and I thought they'd all come and see us. And what do? They come and pick me up and I have to go and see them, be babysitting or Christmas. So, they've got 4 or 5 bedrooms upstairs and they live on the ground floor.
and
So
the big space becomes a bit of a burden then, right?
yeah, and you can't heat it, and it's full of memories. But you think, blimey, I wished I'd cleared the loft and moved out 15 years ago. So again, it's about having those conversations as an advisor, with older people to say, do you not think now's about the time? And I've just had that conversation with my parents only yesterday, and they're going to do it next summer. So that's great news. So
how long have you it's interesting. How long have you been having that conversation with your mum and dad?
For about, we worked it out yesterday with my sister, probably about 11 years.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time, and what's happened is I've had an aunt that now needs to go into care in the next week, and it's really brought it home to them that they're only a couple of years behind her, and they live on the Isle of Man. It's a heck of a journey for us all. So they've decided, we've not had to push, or we've just had that nice gentle conversation saying, you do know it takes me 9.5 hours to get there, don't you? And it's now 500 quid every time I come, and not making them feel guilty, but just realistically, can we get
Would
there?
it be so? Are they moving closer then? Is that what they're doing?
No, they're not moving that much closer to me. They're going to be in the middle of the country, which kind of suits all of us.
Yeah, great.
Family. So
But no, that it's interesting when I'm doing the research for the new book. One of the things that our clients are telling us about sort of realizing what's important, part of it is family, isn't it? It's just like when you're working and you've got less time on your hands, and your children are maybe in their 20s. It's like, okay, well, they've got their life, I've got mine, and then you get a bit older and you realize that you want to reconnect. That's the experience that we're finding our clients have got.
Yeah, even if it's not through grandchildren, it could be anything. It could be because of ill health, or because one of your parents dies, and that does happen. So those are the sorts of conversations that I feel that are really useful to have as families, or with your financial advisor, and that's to sort of scope out what we know does happen to most people going forward. And it shouldn't be a miserable conversation. It should be another exciting chapter in your life. And
I think it's an interesting one. I love it, Jane, when I get an email saying, you've been nudging me, Chris, to spend more money. I've decided to do it now. I love getting that email. but as you said, like with your mum and dad, and similarly to when I have conversations with clients, it does take just a gentle bit of encouragement over time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you don't want people to you don't want to make the decision for them. You just want to empower them with the knowledge that they can if they want.
And then you've got the issue where one wants to move it and one doesn't. And that can happen at my stage in life, I can tell you, because I'd be quite happy to let my family home go, but my husband wouldn't. He loves it here. Like, I just think, well, we could live somewhere else around here that collects less dust.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So tell me a little bit about Solla then, and specifically the work that the organisation you're involved with does.
Yeah. So was a financial advisor for many years, and I always got this feeling that although people were very, I got on brilliantly well with my clients, whenever I was referred to new clients, there was always this suspicion, this underlying feeling of, but how much will this cost? And this sort of underlying, I hate to say it, lack of trust.
Yeah.
Even though I think I'm the most, full of integrity and all the right stuff. And I thought, this is very odd. I mean, where is this? Where do these feelings come from? And of course, our lovely press doesn't help, does it? Because only bad news about finances in the press. You can come on to scams on that one. And so it was about 20 years ago, I was asked by a government organisation to look at what good looks like for financial advisors. And we got organisations like Which and Age Concerners was then involved, and a few practitioners as well, financial advisors, and said, what does a good advisor look like? And from that, we designed an accreditation for advice skills, which is not so much what you know, but how you impart that knowledge, how you explain it, how you take the time to explain it, and thinking about protecting the client, sometimes against their own family, into doing things that perhaps they don't want to do.
Yeah.
And from that accreditation, Solla was born, and my colleague, my joint chair, Tish Hannafin, had been very active with another organisation called Solicitors for the Elderly. And she said, we should have something for financial advisors that's the equivalent, which signposts organisations like Which and Age UK and other charities.
So that people get better advice, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so they get the right advice at the right time, and they know that the people that they're speaking to with the accreditation have had some pretty robust due diligence done on them and a 1.5 hour interview. So it's not a walk in the park. And
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think you're right. I think it's changing, and I think certainly when we see clients, because sort of they typically get referred, we sort of that sort of trials conversations happen with people that we work with already, and it tends to be a bit easier. But I don't think we should underestimate how difficult the conversation about money is for a lot of people, because people are coming into to an advisor and saying, here's my life, Chris, and I'm trusting you with it. It's a big step.
Yeah.
So that was the interview, for part one of the interview with Jay. Let's move on to the last part of the show, which is
Here's
joke
the
of
end.
the week.
Joke of the week. So the document I was using to source my jokes, I've run out of good jokes from.
I've got one.
Oh, you got a joke, Russ?
Yeah. But I have found more, but you
go
can
on
go,
then. Russ was getting involved in joke of the week. Go on, Russ.
I could have been a doctor, but I didn't have the patience.
Have you heard about that guy who walked into a pub and he's looking really ill and like really disheveled and stuff like that? And he goes, barman goes, how you getting on, mate? He went, not good. I need a drink. Go on, what?
No good.
He said, not good. I need a drink. And he said, what do you want? He went, I want a pint glass. I want you to put a double whiskey in there, double brandy, double vodka, double gin. I want you to top it up with super strength lager. And that's what I want. He went, are you sure? He went, yeah, I'm sure. I've had that day. I'm sure. I've had this has been shockingly bad. So anyway, does this drink. the guy picks up the pint, downs it in one, slams it on the thing, goes, oh, I really shouldn't have drunk that with what I've got. And the barman goes, what you got? What you got? The guy just looks at him and goes, 27p. Ross likes it.
I've heard it four times before from your
That is one of
mouth.
my
I
favourite
know what
jokes.
was coming.
That's one of my favourite jokes. Go on, Charlotte.
Yeah.
I mean, your joke will clearly be better than both our jokes put together. If airplane mode from last week is anything to go by.
Okay, don't get your hopes up too much, okay?
Good start. Go on.
Ominous.
Ominous.
Why was the colour green notoriously single?
He was mixing
know.
the red.
Because it was always so jaded.
After an increase in funniness of joke, we are now back to the normal level. Thank you, Charlotte, and thank you everybody for listening to that, and the rest of the Kindness Project. Have a lovely remainder of the week wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you on the next episode soon.
Bye.
Bye.